Okay, the 5 minutes are up. We get back into business. Recess is over. The next item is the discussion item, the proposed 2012-2013 budget. Mr. Goins.
Thank you, Mayor. We have been involved in the budget process for about 4 months now. The first proposed budget that we came up with for the City of Frankfort showed about a 2.8 million deficit, and after meeting with all the department heads and discussing capital items with them, they agreed to purchase many of the capital items out of some special accounts that they had. Of course, it depletes those accounts, but it helps us on our general budget. So we got the budget down to, after $1 million worth of concessions on their part, either deferring or budgeting out of other accounts, $1 million. We got the deficit down to $1.7 million. This preliminary budget contains wages, benefits, and normal overhead expenditures, but very little in capital expenditures. It's been very difficult this budgeting year because, as we forecast last year, the revenues are very flat, especially occupational tax, which we depend on greatly, and of course large percentage of our occupational tax comes from state government employees, and since their employment is down, our occupational tax receipts are down. And then it's been a real team effort thus far, and we all have discussed numerous ways to cut costs or possibly increase revenue, and we realized that the budget is a year-long plan, and we all need to be working together and going in the same direction and trying to fulfill the commitments that we make when we agree upon the budget. And part of our problem is we know that there are certain unavoidable costs that are increasing, and it's not just with Frankfort government, it's all across the nation. It's with county governments and city governments everywhere. And those two things are the pension cost and the cost of health insurance. And these things continues to rise. In our particular budget, these two items combine for about $500,000 a year, and it's almost unavoidable. So tonight we need to consider how we can close this gap of $1.7 million. And later on I'll talk about some options for this, but first I'll turn it over to our treasurer, or Steve Dawson, our finance director.
Thank you, Fred. If you would, if you could kind of refer to the outline on the front page of your books. I've got an outline there, and I've also got a sheet with an outline, because I'm going to call up some sheets and just go over some numbers on each sheet. I'm not going to go through all these numbers, so I can get you to the bottom line results pretty quick, and we can get to the discussion that Fred had discussed there at the end pretty quickly, I think, because like Fred said, most of our budget is salaries, wages, and benefits, and regular overhead costs. So the first thing I want to cover is our budget summary for the year we're in right now. And that's actually this, I reckon it's your second page. It's an estimated summary for 2011 and 12, the period we're in right now. And if you've got that sheet in front of you, I'll call your attention to line 52, which says that per our audit, we finished with a $9.1 million surplus per our audit at the end of 6/30/11. And our estimated revenue for this period is, we're looking at approximately $30.9 million, But the range could go anywhere from, to be honest with you, we just finished April, and we're lagging a little bit behind on our receipts. I don't know if you noticed that. We're about $200,000 down. But I took a look forward to May and see if we could catch it back up. I think we can catch it back up. But we're looking a range anywhere from $30.7 to $30.9 million. And hopefully we can hit the top, the top range of $30.9 million for the current year we're in right now. Our estimated expenditures are 31.5, so that would leave us about a deficit of about almost $575,000 for this year, which would make our general fund balance at the end of this fiscal year that we're in, 6/30/12, about $8.5 million. That's first. The second, I want to go over just a little bit of a recap for next year's budget period and give you a recap of that. So, if you look at the preliminary draft that I gave you for 2012, 2013, does everybody see that? The budget summary for that. And if you look at line 52, you can see that our estimated starting balance would be, as I said, closing balance for the previous year would be $8.5 million. We've budgeted proposed receipts of $31.4 million. And really, the increase after everything nets out really is, and I put in here so far, and I know that this depends on your all's pleasure, what's your all's pleasure, but I put in here a 4% increase for our property tax. Now, I know, y'all got to make that decision, but I just assume that in this budget period because we don't really have we're not seeing any growth right now. Everything looks really flat. So we go from 30.9 to $31 million, about $125,000 increase, and that would be a 4% property tax increase. And then our proposed expenditures that came in after we backed out about $1 million worth of capital costs was $32.7 million. So that would put our excess or our deficit, as Fred said, about $1.7 million. And that would give us an estimated fund balance at 6/30/13 of $6.8 million. And on this same page, if you look over, I just want to make a couple of big statements, and that kind of come up again. But here's some of the things that we pulled from this budget. If you look over at the right side of that page, you'll see details of cost shifting. In item number, I'm just going to pick up the big items. Number 4 was 2 dump trucks purchased from the municipal aid fund that would normally come out of the streets department's budget, and we just shifted it into the municipal aid fund, and that's $210,000. And like we've been talking, we haven't been buying any capital purchases, so these are trucks with some age on them or some miles on them that have to be replaced. So we've talked about not filling those those capital needs, but I don't think that's an option at this point. We've got 1 dump truck that was purchased, another dump truck that was purchased for municipal aid for streets. So there's 3 dump trucks there, and then 1 rubber tire loader that would be purchased from municipal aid of $130,000. So you've got the 210, the 105, and the 130. Then you've got we've got budgeted purchasing 6 police cars from the current year budget. Now, in your packet tonight, on your agenda item, we're asking for 8 now because it looks like we're going to have enough savings from where we haven't hired some of our folks back because of testing and timing delays of hiring some people back. We can go ahead and purchase a full set of 8 vehicles that we plan on purchasing for this budget period out of the current budget period. So we just kind of push it forward and not go over our budget. So that request is in your agenda items. So actually, we can save another $60,000. We can take another $60,000, maybe approximately $67,000 out of this budget by doing that. But anyway, right now there's $203,000 taken out of this budget for the 6 police cars. And then a garbage truck that would normally be purchased from general fund for $230,000. Now that total of shifting or purchasing from other funds is $878,000. So that's the major stuff that's coming out here. So again, we're back down to no capital purchases out of the general fund. in this budget, basically. We've got a few, like, for example, and I'll go over them in a second, but, one thing we're purchasing is a car for the fire department. The chief needs a new car because his car's rusted really bad. And then we've got some, the garbage carts, approximately $200,000 that's inside of this budget. But other than that, most of the stuff's been removed, your capital purchases. So we're down to, salaries and benefits and just a few capital purchases. That's all I had on that page. I'm going to go on to the next page and talk about revenue a little bit. I can cover this budget pretty quickly because everything's really flat on the revenue side. And that's where we always start the budget process. So we come up with our revenue first. So that's the very first place we start. We need to create this budget. But I'm going to point out just a few items for you. And you can see current year taxes. Has everybody got the revenue comparison sheet in front of them? Okay. Line number 8 there, current year taxes, that's one increase that we had, really the major net increase that we've got here, and that's $125,000. You can see the note out to the side. If we take the 4% increase, our budgeted revenue is $3,275,000 for property tax. I'm going to point out a couple things to you while we've got this page open. If you look at line number 17, insurance license, you'll note that our insurance premium tax is up about 8%, so that's a good thing. Also line number 18, our occupational tax in the private sector is up from about $8,342,000 at the end of last year to, it looks like it's going to be about 8.6 this year, and that's what we budgeted for next year. So that's up 3%. But on the other side, as Fred was saying, our state government withholding tax is down, and we took in for June ended 2011, we took in $7,460,000, almost $70,000, and it looks like our budget for next year is going to be at $7.1 million. So that's down, about 5%. Those are a couple of big things I wanted to talk about. Another thing, ambulance service is in line number 59. If you look down through there, we're struggling in the collection side for ambulance service fees, and we've had some pretty significant increases there over the years, but this year it's down slightly, and we've got some collection issues, and Chief is looking at that right now, working with the collection company on that, but we're off there, and I'm hoping that's going to be one of the things that we need to pick up on in order to make our budget hit this year. Mm-hmm. Of course, the other thing, I think Fred might have mentioned this, is of course you all know this, our garbage fee, not down from last year because we didn't make that last collection last year, but for 2 years ago, it's gone from $550,000 to $300,000. So that's basically we're not getting any growth because of two primary factors. One is the state government is down, and then we gave up $300,000 worth of revenue there, which we all knew we were going to do. But that's one thing that, when you pull those out, we'd otherwise have some growth if we had those two things, those two factors up. So anyway, what we projected is a $31,043,000 for our receipts for this budget period. Okay. Any questions on that? Any comments? And what I did, you can see, just for one information, a lot of times we talk about our total receipts. Last year, for example, we took in, I just want to point this out, we took in $33 million last year. But $2.3 million of that, line number 50, was grant and aids, is mainly for the Cold Spring grants. That's just one-time money. That's money that comes in and goes back out. It's not recurring revenue, so you can't really depend on that. So, you can't really call that revenue. So if you back that out, our true revenue last year was $30.7 million, and the year before, if you back out your grants, it was $30.6. So you can see all that on your schedule, how I'm coming up with these numbers that we talk about, every month, or, every so often we'll talk about this. So I'm trying to get at the true reoccurring revenue. And also included in the sheet, and I'll say this too, and, we've got transfer of money from other accounts in here. We've got transfer of, for example, just another comment, line number 57, E911, we're going to transfer $300,000 out of there to help balance the general fund. And then if you look, see, on line number 65, sewer allocation fee, $300,000. And, it's $300,000 this year, but I'll just give you one example, like for the sewer fund. From 2007 to 2008, when we started transferring money, we've transferred $1.4 million from the sewer fund over to the general fund to help make this fund balance. Otherwise, our fund balance would be, down $1.4 million, but that's how much we've transferred out of the sewer fund, which I'm sure Bill would say that's a good project for him, But that's how much we transferred from the general fund, from the sewer fund to the general fund. Okay. That's all on that page, if there's not any other questions. Those are the major items. The next page I want to go over is the equipment comparison page, because there's some things on here, and there's really 4 major items I want to talk about on this. There's 3 pages to this, if everybody's got that. First, if you would, flip over to the last page really quick. This is what Fred alluded to earlier. Column D, the last line on column D, the original request was $2.3 million for equipment, equipment and agency requests. That's what this has on this sheet here. Okay, but after we talked to the managers, we agreed to purchase some equipment out of other accounts, so we took it down to $1.3 million. So we basically took $1 million worth of cost out of the general fund. That's where your $1 million worth of savings were, basically. Everybody see that? Now, if you would, I'm sorry, I'm flipping around a little bit, but flip back to page 1 again. Okay, let's just talk down through here just really quick. Agency requests, and this is going to come up. We're going to be discussing this in the next several sessions. But last year, agency requests, in the first column there, column A, we budgeted $363,000 for agency requests. And if you look over 2 columns over to column E, it's down $2,000, and that's basically the push on line 13. That agency has gone away. So that $2,000 is down. So we basically budgeted, included in the budget now is the same budget we had last year. We kept the agency request the same for this initial discussion. Okay, now that's one item I want to point out. Now, if you keep going on down, go down to fire and look at line 67, and you'll see that there's the chief's vehicle replacement. That's one of the capital items that's coming out of this budget. It's $24,000.
67.
Everybody with me? No. Okay. I'm going over stuff quick because I want to
hold up just a second.
Right here.
Now, okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
There's 3 pages still. I'm on the front page there, and I'm looking 3/4 of the way down at the fire department. Everybody see that? Mm-hmm. So you got $24,000 in this budget for capital. I'm just picking up the big stuff. Okay, the other stuff on there is a lot of it's carry over from last time. Okay, now if you go on down to line 74, originally Chief Wilhoit asked for 8 cruisers, and we've taken it down to 2 cars. And as I said, we can take some more. I think we can take some more out of here because we come back with this request for 8 cars in this budget period, so I can totally take this all out of here. So there's another $67,000. If you look at the equipment that goes with the cruisers plus the 2 cruisers, we can take that totally out of here. So that's some more money that we can take out of this budget period. Okay, and I'll make that adjustment later. But we didn't know exactly how much money we didn't know how his account was going to come out until we closed out the books in April. So we couldn't really make that judgment call yet. That's why we kind of held back. Okay, now if you would flip over to page 2, and there's the line 89, there's the 2 dump trucks that were in there coming out. It's 210,000 coming out of there. Look at, there's a skid steer thing in here that's $31,000. It's not that big of money, but it's on line 90 there that's still in the budget. If you look down to sanitation, you'll see the rollout carts. They were originally included in there. We didn't take those out of here. Then you got garbage truck to be purchased from the municipal aid account on line 107. That came out. That was in here. It came out. $230,000. Yeah. Left the pickup truck in there. That's really about it. I want to say there's there's about $700,000 worth of capital. Let's see. It's about $900,000 worth of capital purchase still included in this budget right here. After you back out the agency request. But there's 4 or 5 things here that that we just covered that's included, still included in this budget. Okay, now so we've talked about equipment comparison. Now I want to give you just one more bit of information before we get to go to the report that Fred was discussing. We're going to go on past that and look at. Do you have the long-term capital investment needs? Do you have that sheet there?
Part of a packet.
That's toward it's toward the back. It's after.
I think the last one, maybe more than mine.
They're all kind of going in the same line.
Yeah.
It's the last one.
Yeah, you got that. Okay. This is one thing that the auditor had requested that we do, and we've done some of this before, but we kind of stopped doing it because we just couldn't, we couldn't afford to buy any capital equipment in this budget period, let alone 5 years out. But they've asked us to do a 5-year projection of the capital needs. So every department, put their needs. Some of them are wish list things, and some of them are pure needs that they actually need. But if you add up that, there's over the next 5 years, there's $15 million worth of capital needs there, average of about $3 million of capital needs per year going forward. So I think that's good information that we know, and you can look at these. You can go back through the detail and look at the requests from everybody. But you've got your average your garbage truck information in there. You've got your police car information, and dump trucks, all kinds of stuff in there. So that gives you a little bit of feedback of what's going to be needed going forward. And like I said, the auditor had requested us that we provide it, get that information from our managers. Fred, that's kind of a big overview of what's in the budget. And like I said, we're looking mainly at salaries, benefits. Would you want to make some more comments?
But you covered a whole lot real fast. Why don't we stop here and see if there are any questions or comments at this point?
I mean, all the questions and comments I've got are actually on the nuts and bolts, so I guess they can wait. I'll go ahead and ask why, on the equipment comparison sheet, what's the bump in line 37? Large equipment bump in IT? From 45 to 80?
Well, originally, I think IT had asked for. Are you on the equipment? I'm sorry. Which
Yeah,
page?
on the equipment comparison.
I think originally IT had asked for some laptops because their laptop.
We put our technology requests through IT, so those are in DCs.
So that's the equipment for the cars.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but we took some of that. We took that down and tried to buy it over 2 years. The technology was going bad on some of those laptops, right? They were timing out. some of the laptops that are in the vehicles. These are existing cars that need laptops, am I understanding right?
Right, these are
Not new cars,
These are
but
replacements for the MDCs that we originally got with the Homeland Security grants about 5 years, 5 or 6.
and so we're going to try to spread, Commissioner, we're going to try to spread those over a couple of years, but that's what's the plan right now, to try to get that squeezed down. But I know their computers are timing out on them right now, so they're having to come back here, and it's not very efficient. So
I guess the other question I have, this is kind of a nuts and bolts question, but since it's already come up, we're looking at purchasing 3 dump trucks, 2 in streets and 1 under flood wall. I assume the flood wall and streets dump trucks are a little different, although I probably shouldn't assume anything. But I assume those are to replace existing dump trucks. The existing ones, are they? I assume they're on their last legs, or they're getting old, but they're still running.
That's a lot of those dump trucks have, we do our salt, the rust out underneath, and then I need to replace according to our fleet.
Meaning they've already rusted out, or they're about to?
No, they've rusted, and we replaced some of the beds last year, but he's saying these are in need of replacement.
As opposed to replacing the beds?
Yeah, we've already replaced beds last year
Uh-huh.
on 3 trucks, and these trucks specifically, he recommended that we buy them.
The whole truck? I mean, it's...
The frames are rusted.
Okay. Are they the same, are they all 3 essentially the same dump truck?
Well, one dump truck was in an accident last year,
Uh-huh.
and it's totaled. We got an insurance check last year. So we bought a small vehicle. So we need 3 larger dump trucks for our snowplow.
And I guess the snow plow is what's under flood wall? And this, or what's the...
Yes. They're all out of one department, essentially, the equipment is.
Mhm.
But we kind of use all the dump trucks for snow removal, whether it's in flood wall or street department.
I just have to, and I'm sure you all thought about this, I just have to ask, I mean, is there any way to just replace the 2 worst ones and then only replace the 3rd one when it actually hits the line, and roll the dice and see if we can get another year out of it?
Mr. Hackbart, would you come to the podium so we can pick this up?
Sorry, guys, I'm going to have some questions like this for every department.
Before,
Yeah.
just as a comment, the city manager is going to, as you said just a minute ago, you want to look at some kind of recommendations for consideration. But and before we try to get into the, I'll just bring this up to you, before we try to get into each of the departments and just go down this list, after Mr. Heckbart finishes his presentation here for whatever, if the city manager could maybe address that. It's in our,
Sure.
then we
That's
can,
fine.
then we can look at that, and then we can go later in more detail.
That's great.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Heckbart.
Our fleet superintendent, Mike Chapman, went through our fleet, and he has a replacement criteria, and he assessed every piece of our vehicle. And in the fleet
replacement criteria, years of service for a heavy dump truck. He recommends that we replace our dump trucks after between 8 and 10 years of age and 80,000 miles. So that's his criteria, and these 3 trucks exceed both the years and the mileage criteria. And he's saying when you consider the fact that the frames are rusting due to the salt because of the age, he's recommending that we park them for safety. So that's what his criteria is when he recommends that they be replaced.
So you're saying that if we try to keep running one of these trucks, that we're not just risking breaking down.
That's correct.
We're risking. What's the safety concern?
It's the rust in the frame of the truck, and the
Saying the truck might
high
just
cost of
implode.
maintenance on an older vehicle like that's used in this severe condition. It's not like a normal vehicle that's operating on the road. These are subjected to lots of salt loadings in the winter, and it just really takes a toll on the frame. And given the age of the vehicles, he's recommending that we replace them.
Right. I guess give me an example of somebody getting hurt if we don't replace this truck.
That's all rust out.
Well, I mean, the braking systems, I mean, the high cost of repair when you have an older vehicle that's rusted out would be a major concern. When you have the frame rust out, then its strength is compromised as well. So I guess there would be a couple concerns with the high cost of maintenance and the safety factor of having a loaded dump truck with a rusted frame would be a concern.
Okay. Okay. I mean, the rust I can accept. I will say I don't really take much stock in years of service or mileage. I mean, I think that when vehicles are properly maintained, those are just statistics. But if there's a genuine concern that the frame's actually rusty and compromised, then even if it only has 10,000 miles and 2 years of service, we need to replace it. But
I can verify he's been holding on his truck because he's been, about every year he comes in and he says, well, we're going to replace the bed on his truck,
Yeah.
So he's replaced I know they replaced the beds on his trucks because that was in last time's budget.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So he's been holding back as long as he can,
Okay. That's fine. I was hoping that we could only get 2 instead of 3, but that's.
But we've already pulled, we're getting out
I was
of
gonna
municipal aid, which that account's kind of replenishing itself because, we're getting state funds in there and they can buy some equipment out of there. So it's more of a replenishing fund than it is, from a standpoint of buying stuff out of transportation.
Well, yeah, but the municipal aid's a pretty important fund. As much as possible, I'd like to see it spent on actual transportation, as opposed to this type of capital project. But so I guess my other question is, what's the ramification if the city only operates with 2 dump trucks instead of 3, or with what's the ramification if we just?
I guess the level of service would be the answer. For example, this winter on the west side of town, we were down 2 trucks, and so we only had one large dump truck on the west side of town, and when we only had one major snow, or excuse me, it was an ice storm. And we only had one truck servicing the west side of town, which includes the hospital and the fire station, that King's Daughter Drive area, which is essential for emergency operations. But in order to get all the trucks on the east and downtown, we only had one truck available for the west side of town. So during that one event, there was a lot of the west side of town that didn't have the regular service that it had always had. And during an ice storm, that becomes an issue. So that's where these dump trucks, I guess, level of service when it comes to snow removal is critical.
So it sounds like you're saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you're saying that if we buy 2 dump trucks instead of 3, we're still increasing our current level of service.
No, we're just trying to maintain our current level of service with
So we were
these purchases.
okay. So you say we were 1 down.
on the
That's not
west side of town.
Right.
We usually have 2 trucks on the west side of town. We only had 1 truck, but I'm talking about serving the whole town.
Okay.
We were unable to maintain our current level of service on the west side of town.
So a little unclear on the numbers. So are you saying that we normally have 4 trucks for the entire city, and we had 3?
No, we have 11 trucks for
Okay.
the city. So we're requesting, and one was damaged in a wreck, so it was out of service, and then
We get insurance for that.
and it was on order, and we didn't have it in, and we ordered a smaller truck because that was what
Right.
we needed at the time. But we're really in need of larger vehicles to haul the capacity of salt to, do the snow and ice removal. And this is based on our fleet superintendent's recommendations.
Okay, I mean, we can move on. I'm still somehow not sold that the city would grind to a halt if we got 2 trucks instead of 3. But that's fine. We got other stuff to talk about. Thanks.
Thank you. So, Mr. McGowan, you have some presentation to make.
Yes, we're to the point in the discussion that I hate to come to, really. We know, and we've been discussing the fact that we've got about a $1.7 million deficit at this point before we start this discussion. However, there are many options open to the commission, and we felt, it's part of our obligation to bring all the possibilities and options that we can think of to the commission at this point. And so we came up with about 13 different discussion items, and we met with our leadership staff and our department heads, and we talked about each one of these. We talked about them pretty much at length, and any one of these items would be painful and unattractive really for us to do, but we're faced with a question here of either proposing to take a large amount of money out of our reserve, or to consider these or a combination of these. And so we have a narrative description, and then we have the first column, which gives you some detail, and then we have the column titled amount, which would be the total amount. But then on the right, the very extreme right column, are the actual proposals that we came up with after our discussion. Now, as I say, this is sort of a cafeteria type situation where you might go through here and pick and choose any combination of these. But the very first is, since we've got approximately a 5% deficit in our budget, we consider the 5% reduction just across departments, and this would be a total of $403,000 deduction. But knowing this would be drastic to our departments, and just pretty hard to do across all departments. So after discussion, we were talking about possibly proposing 1% cut. So for each 1%, we would gain $80,600. So we're just coming with a proposal of 1%. Then another thing that some places are using is furloughs, and furloughs for employees to save the payroll cost. There's a whole lot of problems with that, and we have a lot of people who work in safety. We just heard from a lot of them tonight, our fire and police, and you can hardly furlough those guys. You know, they're vital, they're essential, and so we didn't come with a proposal for a furlough at all after discussion. Then another item number 3, would be to suspend the golf course for a year. Now, this would save $334,000, but we did not propose that. Another thing we could do, item number 4, suspend the swimming pool for a season. That would save about $130,000. We did not propose that.
Can I interrupt you real quick, Fred?
Sure.
I've got the same spreadsheet here, but I'm glancing over at the mayor's, and mine's dated 5/1 and is clearly not as up to date. Do we have more copies of what you're?
514 is the one we should be looking at.
Right.
Mine says 5-1 as well.
Is yours set that way? I have a problem. I printed mine off of the email that we got.
Okay.
I'm sorry. Do you have more of those, Steve?
Yeah,
514 is the one we should be looking at.
I think this is the same one, but it's,
How many do,
Okay, let me look
Mine
at
says
it.
oh, yeah,
5-1.
you don't have,
how many do we need?
I think 3. Bill and Katie and I have the old one.
3 copies.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
I bet you wondered what's going on.
I did, because that's not coming out right. When you were doing those percent, I kept thinking
Yeah.
something wasn't right when it said 403. and it's-
I got a second page on there, because I broke down that 1%, what it would mean for each department. I don't think everybody's got that.
I don't have that one.
So I wrote it out on the side.
Steve, can I have that one? Thank you.
It's 5-9, right? You say 5-9.
Yeah, this is a 5/9/12. This is 5/14.
Yeah,
There's
it's
no
basically,
difference.
look at the bottom line numbers, the same as that.
Yeah, bottom line numbers are
Yeah,
the same.
yeah. I think we're good.
If he gets back, he'll get messed up.
Good, good. I think everybody's good now. I think everybody's at the same document.
Okay.
Thanks.
I think we were on item number 5. Proposal number 5 would be suspend, not a proposal, I'm sorry, analysis number 5, suspend the summer sports program, and that would save $270,000. We did not propose that. Then the overtime column is very significant. That's item number 6. If you buzz down through there, it shows overtime by some degree of detail. And the total amount of overtime is pretty striking. It's $776,000. And if we cut half of that, we would save $388,000. However, we're back to another similar discussion we had with fire and police. It's almost impossible to cut because of safety concerns, and
We got them.
they are used a great deal by all these special events, all the bike rides and the races and the derby and marches on the Capitol and barricaded SWAT team situations. So if we cut half of the overtime, it would be $388,000, but there's a real downside to that. Then number 7, what they're trying in some cities is a brownout of a firehouse. This is just an analysis of the Home Street station. If we had a brownout for one day, it would save $2,470 per day. We did not propose that. Then we're getting into some of the healthcare issues, and Randy might be called upon. But number 8 is subsidize the health care at the single rate only. And I understand county does this, and I think the state government does this also. But county does, right? So what that would amount to is you'd take the single rate, no matter what kind of coverage you got, as an employee, you'd get credit for the single rate, and you could apply that to whatever coverage you wanted. Of course, that would greatly reduce the amount of money that we're putting into our health insurance. It would reduce it by $1,684,000, and we did not propose that. Item number 9, eliminate working spouses who have health care coverage where they work, and that's being applied across the United States in by many employers, and that would save $233,000 without eliminating health care for the spouse, because they could get it where they work, and that is part of our proposal. Number 10 would be a hard hiring freeze, which would be no replacement hires for turnover. That would save $300,000, we estimate, but that's difficult because oftentimes, you don't know who's going to leave, and so you might have several leave and leave us in a deficient situation in a certain department or for a certain kind of service. Then number 11, we had a reduced agency request by 25%. After analyzing this, we did propose this, and part of the reasoning is many of these agencies gain a lot of contributions from input of the city. These charity races, some of the bicycle races, some of the charity events, we contribute a great deal of in-kind services. And also our golf course contributes by having a lot of activities for charities, and that amount of money really doesn't go through our books, but we know it's a large amount of money. So we're supplementing the agencies quite a bit more than what it might seem. So we did recommend that to be about a $91,000 decrease there. Number 12 is increase the insurance premium fee by 1%. That's a very large item there, and only 1% increase in that would equal $616,000. Staff did not propose that, but there has been, it seems like there has been some interest in further discussing that by at least a couple of commissioners. Number 13 would be increasing the occupational tax by 0.25%. And of course, if you did this, you'd have to make it effective in January, and it would result in an additional $1,128,000 in this budget year. It's my understanding that the occupational tax has not been increased in about 10 years, and when it was increased, it was increased by 0.75. So this would be a relatively small increase in the occupational tax, which would raise a very large amount of money and really give some relief for our budget. And so we did recommend that one. And so you get to the total amount that we have on the proposal side, not counting insurance premium fee, would be $1.833 million. And of course, like I said, none of these proposals really are attractive things to do, but in lieu of making changes, we would need to dip, very deeply into our reserve fund. So you could look at the reserves fund plus a combination of any of these, or even the ones that we did not propose, because we wanted you to see a comprehensive study of what we looked at. And so we're open for discussion or comments.
Okay, I would just would like to recommend it for discussion to address these large items first and see what kind of initial feeling you have about them, or any comments you'd like to make regarding the recommendation proposals that the staff has made, or the others that they just pointed out, things that could be done. You have any feelings about this?
Well, I have another suggestion.
Yes.
That's okay. Mr. Donahue, last year I mentioned something about the Kentucky Coalition on Prescription Drugs, that there's entities that are saving money by kind of joining forces. I don't know if you recall, but, we're in the trance of changing the insurance plan, and you said you want to look at it for a year before trying to go back and seeing if it's something to join, which the Kentucky Teachers Retirement System, which is, obviously a large entity, they're saving $11 million this year on their accounts just for prescription drug for employees and retirees that are using the system. I don't know if it's something that the city of Frankfort wants to look at, or proposed cost savings.
We're going to look at the pharmacy and the healthcare and the TPA, the administrative costs. But as I recall, the issue with Coalition was you had to sign a 3-year contract.
Okay.
So even if you didn't get the cost savings, you were locked in for 3 years. And we just didn't think, with the rapidly changing healthcare market, our brokers advised us that they thought a 3-year lock-in might be problematic. And I'm not saying it wouldn't work. I'm just saying that they thought we shouldn't lock into anything for 3 years at a time.
Do you know if that's changed, if they'll do shorter terms or not, if it's something,
They made a presentation. I can't remember if Mr. Goins was here, if it was Mr. Massey that was here when they came and did their proposal, but at the time they talked to us, they required a 3-year lock, and that they wouldn't discuss year-to-year agreements or whatever. And that could have changed because it's probably been a year.
Right. Right. While you're up here, what other, is it just with Wells Fargo that, looking at the cost savings through them with insurance?
We're going to look at the TPA, but, the TPA is only about $200,000 a year. And nobody's going to do it for free. If you could get a 20% savings, you're talking about maybe $40,000 or so. And I'm not saying we could get a 20% savings. We might find out if we can bid it. A year and a half ago when we started to try to bid our business out, nobody would even touch it because of the structure of the benefit plan. The Anthem, the Humana, United, nobody wanted to take on that burden of risk or that level of benefits.
Right.
Now that we've made the changes, I think they will. And, we intend to take it to market later this year, but if we do that, you're looking at a January 1 renewal would be the soonest that you could make a change, I think. There's some belief or some, until we get there, I don't know. Our broker told us that another employer who was larger than us that recently changed from Bluegrass Families Network, which we use, to Humana Network. There was that Humana's network discounts were significantly different, and they generated quite a bit of savings. Now, the only way to determine if that's true would be to look at some of our claims, and that's what we would do during that bid process. We would give them either all of our claims or some sample of claims, and they would price it, and Bluegrass would price it, and we could see if their network created a bigger discount on the on the claims side. But the majority of our cost on health plan are claims. And so to really get to knock a big dent in the $3.5 million a year, we've got to talk about how we either, A, reduce claims in the face of 8 to 10% medical inflation, or how we shift the cost of those claims from the plan to the employees. And that's basically what items 8, 9, and 10, 8 and 9
Right.
do. And there's other options in between that you could look at. You could, actually this year's budget's built on a $250,000 increase on the general fund side, which is a little less than 8%. It's less than what our trend is. It's probably going to have to absorb our wellness cost the first year until we can set up a premium scheme where maybe the non-participants pay for the participants. So at that $250,000 increase on the general fund side, we're probably going to have to take another swing and look at deductibles and cost sharing on the premium if we're going to try to stay within that $250,000.
I guess I've got some questions. Was that all?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
A question about option number 9. Would that apply to dependents other than spouses? Or would eliminating working spouses with health care coverage? They'll say they're also dependents, children on a family plan.
I'm sorry, I missed part of that.
Option number 9, eliminating working spouses.
Yes, basically, the
Would that
proposal
only
would be
apply to the spouses?
that we would put a provision in our health plan that that if an employee was going to have their spouse on the plan, they would need to submit an affidavit or something stating that their spouse doesn't have coverage through another employer.
And so my question being, would that only apply to spouses?
What about dependents, I think is what he's asking. What about dependents?
No, dependents would stay on the plan.
Okay.
Or they could go to the spouse's plan, but, that would be
But even if
a family
they
decision.
would be covered under the spouse's coverage, it would still be the family's discretion to keep the dependents on the city's coverage.
Absolutely, would give the families a choice. And,
They both work for the city. I think it's ruled out, right?
Well, one would hope.
Right.
But that, and that's strictly just a stab at the cost savings. The only way I knew to get there was we've got 740 participants. We took the $3.5 million that we're spending, we divided it by 740 participants to get a cost per participant, and I pulled the 50 just out of anecdotal discussions. I think there may be 50 to 75 spouses that are employed that are on our plan, and if we got 50 of them to move, I just took 50 times our cost per participant to get there. I don't know if spouses cost or more or less. We'd probably need to get an actuary to look at it to get a real accurate, but we're basically just throwing together eyeball, kind of rough estimates. And
Sure.
And I might add, that might take care of itself if our family premiums were similar to other employers' family premiums. If there wasn't, and I don't blame families for taking the best deal they can get. Absolutely, we all do that. But our family premium is so much lower than everybody else's that we're carrying a much higher percentage of family plans. And I think Wells Fargo kind of presented that last year. And right now we've got about 140 spouses on the plan out of 290 employees that participate in the plan.
Okay. I don't. That's all I get to know. I've got so many questions, and the more just yes and no answers we can get, the better the chances of getting out of here today. regarding the question of overtime, as related to agency requests, do we charge anything to police special events?
No.
We don't. Then I would be down to either reduce that level of service or charge an appropriate fee for it. And or in regards to the agency requests, I'd be more inclined to decrease the in-kind services we provide than to actually decrease the funding. I guess I'll sound off on on these suggestions. In terms of number one, yes, I would be in favor of making department cuts along a particular percentage. I'll also note, and we can get to this later, and I'm sorry, it'll take a bit, but I've identified what I feel are $235,900 worth of just straight cuts we can make to particular lines in here, and a lot of those are just cuts of $100 here and $1,000 there, but that obviously adds up to $250,000. We can go over that in a bit. I would not be in favor of suspending the summer sports program. Or the swimming pool, but I'd be open to increasing the fees for those services, considering the deficit they operate under. I would be in favor of reducing overtime with exceptions for public safety. Would not be in favor of browning out the firehouse or of subsidizing health care at the single rates, although I could consider eliminating working spouses with health care coverage. I am in favor of maintaining the hiring freeze, and I'm not in favor of increasing insurance premium fees, although we can discuss it. And something else that Commissioner Turner brought up at the beginning of last year that I would still be very open to discuss is the possibility of increasing occupational taxes while decreasing another more local tax, while decreasing, property taxes, for example, in a way that increases the city's revenue, but that does it essentially just by shifting the tax burden outside of the city a little bit, because we do have to maintain a higher level of service than most cities our side, considering the thousands of folks who come in here to work every day. So I definitely have a problem with kind of readjusting our tax code just to shift the burden out to those folks who are coming in a little bit. That's all my 2 cents.
Anybody else comments? I can go. Thank you, Mayor. I'm looking at the possibilities and options. First off, thank you, City Manager Goins, for putting this together, and the staff and the department heads for working on getting these numbers to us. It's very informative and helpful. I guess what each of us are doing are going through and identifying which ones are possibilities for us and which ones are not of these options. Number one, which is the 5% department cuts, I would be in favor of the proposed 1% on that. I don't see or anticipate being ever in favor of doing furloughs, simply because you do have an issue of hazardous versus non-hazardous, and the amount of return off of that is nothing compared to what we're needing to take off the budget. Suspending the golf course and swimming pool, I do not support those. I do not support suspending summer sports programs. 50% reduction on overtime. I was shocked to see the overtime number, although I've been advised on it. When you see it in writing, it's shocking. I think that Lexington has had their fair share of the brownout firehouses, and we certainly shouldn't copy that mistake. Subsidizing the health care at the single rates, well, in the long run, that's where you want to go. One of the things that Wells Fargo talked to us, and I think accurately so, is as we improve our health insurance plan, we have to ease it on the employees. We can't do it all at once, and that would be a major shock to the system. Eliminating working spouses with health care coverage, I think that's a smart idea, something that we can do and it's feasible. The hiring freeze, I think, is something we certainly should continue. Reducing agency requests. These agencies, as Mr. Current talked about when he was here and gave citizens comments, these agencies are feeling it oftentimes worse than us. I mean, I know that we provide services for them and everything, but the seniors are $50,000 in the hole, and if they don't get the city funding, then those services end, and those are important services that are performed for citizens who are taxpayers in this community, who help pay the bills here at City Hall. With regards to insurance premium fees, I actually think that's the best possibility for increased revenue for the city. A 1%. I deal with city governments and county governments throughout the Commonwealth, and send invoices and bills on insurance premiums to probably, I'd say, over 60 counties at least, and 60 cities in this community, in this state. And I mean, I'm talking 9 to 1. The majority of those are 10% are the insurance premium tax. Frankfurt's insurance premium tax is extremely low compared to what's out there in the rest of the Commonwealth. Ours is at 6 right now. But most of the rest of the state is looking at 10%. So if you go up to 7%, you're still one of the lowest in the state, or at least definitely on the lower end in the state, and it has a potential to raise a nice chunk of revenue. If you go up to 2%, now you're really taking on the deficit, and you're still lower than what the majority of, I think 8% is probably about average. So I would certainly certainly consider looking at that. Increase the occupational tax 0.25%. While certainly in the past I've proposed readjusting how we do our tax structure so that you could eliminate 50% of your property tax and increase the occupation with 25. You transfer the burden from the citizens here in the community to the burden of people who are coming and using the services during the day that don't pay those property taxes. I know that our staff does have concerns about reducing property taxes and that rate because they compound annually. And so out of all of those, I guess the ones that I highlighted as the ones that I think are acceptable are the ones that I mentioned before. So that's where I stand. Certainly can discuss those as we go forward. Thanks, Mayor.
While we're doing this, I'll go on and sound off on my ideas. The thing about the budget is that it's based on business principles. However, we're not just a business, we're a city. And we can't always operate like a business because what we provide are services. And so when we adopt a budget, we authorize these services to be provided, of which these services provide and reflect the quality of life of our community. And with these cost reduction possibility options, I'm in favor of supporting number 9, which would be eliminating working spouses with health care coverage, knowing that dependents can still be covered. Number 12, increasing the insurance premium fees 1%, because echoing what Commissioner Turner just spoke about, and also number 13, increasing occupational tax 0.25%. And those three alone would bring a total of $1,978,583, which would take us $295,852 over the 1,682,731 we need to meet.
Well, Mayor, I need to digest some of these, but I can see some benefits with departmental cuts, not at the 5%, but maybe the 1%. I just need to know what those cuts are going to be by department. Some departments may not be able to cut as easily as others. Eliminating the working spouses from the health care coverage is certainly a possibility, as long as it doesn't put an undue burden on a family who maybe doesn't have access to the same level of health care that they would be receiving now. So I'd have to see what kind of effect that would have. I can definitely say I don't want to do the increase on the insurance premium fees or occupational tax increase, because I feel like that occupational tax increase hits the working folks harder, and that would affect a lot of people in a I think in an adverse way. So I think there's a couple of possibilities here, but I think we can still go back and rework this and still come up with some other options that we haven't had a chance to hear back from, feedback from our department heads on ways that they can probably cut. Because I think they would probably know what type of percentage they can cut and still be able to provide the essential services that we need each department to come up with.
Okay, now, I could go along with number 1 and number 9, number 10, and would like to have more discussion on the insurance premium fees. It's a possibility. I've looked at other cities over time on the occupational tax, and I know that there's several at 2 right now and above. I don't like to look at that, but that is something I think that we could discuss to see. It's regarding the property tax. I'm a little squeezy about that. I just, from what I've been told over the years and what my experiences have been, people that have worked the budget have always told me, don't mess with that. And property taxes go up and down, property value. And so if we did not have, I don't know how much ours is dropped during this little session we have. I don't know how much our property, our value of our property, the property in our city. I mean, I don't know how much that is, but I'm just making a point that if when it drops, if we know we can get at least 4%, and if there's something that's built in, I think, is a safety valve. That's just where. But anyway, those are some things. Well, now, in the gang, yes, sir, Commissioner Waller.
Well, no, go ahead, Mayor. I was just going to say I do have some alternative suggestions as well. They're kind of hard to quantify.
Sure.
And I brought some of these up before. I'm still open to consolidating the City Commission's charitable giving by letting a third party, like United Way, disperse some of those funds for us. They do that sort of thing, as in a lot of their spending just goes towards other agencies, and they're just really known for their accountability and follow through, and they would ensure, I think, a more efficient management of our agency contributions without necessarily negatively impacting the agencies. Mm-hmm. And there are some agencies that I'd still be inclined to kind of keep within our purview just to make certain that they're dealt with. But I've got a question about the extent to which is our entire small vehicle fleet now being serviced at the state garage? That's something I brought up a couple of years ago. Just what?
Just police department.
Just police? Why aren't we servicing the rest? Why aren't we doing that with the rest of our small vehicle fleet?
About 3 or 4 years ago, we had some retirements in our city garage, and we approached the state garage down on Home Street. They service the vehicle enforcement, a lot of like vehicles of our police department, about taking on the maintenance of our police cruisers. And so we cut our staff from 8 people down to 5. And with 5 people, just for efficiency, we service all our large vehicles, backhoes, mowing equipment, and small fleet for oil changes. So it's just a matter of staff utilization with 5. And the benefit of the police department going to the state garage, they're used to servicing that type of vehicle, so there seemed to be some benefit there. And we negotiate an hourly rate. But as far as, if you have 5 people scheduled in the garage, we need 5 people, because with people off, to go below that would be, we couldn't service the city fleet. It's so.
Even if we transfer the rest of our light vehicles, because we do have light vehicles in other departments.
We could, but I don't think we can go below 5 people in our fleet garage, because just with staffing, that's getting down to the point where with all our large vehicles, you need to have 2 or 3 people in the garage between running parts and fixing vehicles, just from a safety standpoint.
Sure.
You can't have people in a garage working by themselves.
Right.
If I may make one point, if you care to explore that, the state garage has suffered kind of what Public Works has suffered with the release of some inmates, because they use inmates in a lot of their work. So their working staff has shrunk some too. So if that's something that you want to look at, then we need to investigate if their staffing level would be able to handle the extra fleet.
Okay. Well, maybe that's something to look at this year then, and I don't want to lay anybody off. But in the event that a member of our garage retires, just as an act of attrition, I would still, at that time, like us to take a look at transferring our like vehicles to the state garage. Because if we only need 2 or 3 people in the garage at any given time, then it seems like we could get by with 4 folks in that department. But we can cross that bridge through attrition. We don't need to lay anyone off. This is pretty negligible, but my sense is that we still provide way too many employees with cell phones. We have some employees who are essentially secretaries with landlines who also have city issued cell phones. And it seems that we could, and lots of other, lots of employers simply reimburse for work calls made on personal cell phones, if that needs to happen. So that's something I think we could do. I've brought this up a couple of times last term, but I'm still in favor of requiring anyone taking a car home, a city vehicle home, to keep a thorough log of miles traveled, both on and off the job. Because not only would this bring accountability and allow us to identify any potential abuse, and we know these vehicles are abused sometimes, but I think that would also serve as a deterrent against excessive personal use, which would save us some money. I asked I don't know if you had a chance yet, Fred, to look into whether or not legislators in town pay occupational taxes.
Yes,
They might not be. They might legally be exempt.
I think they're legally exempt. I checked on that,
Figures.
going through this lobbyist thing a couple of years ago. That was my understanding. It's their example.
Figures the folks in charge of passing the laws pass a law that says they don't have to pay taxes. That's classic. I would like to clarify that the city commission does pay taxes. Okay, well, this will take a minute, but I really do have a bunch of notes in this packet, but that can wait.
Could I make a suggestion, at least for your consideration? It's 9 minutes after 10. Staff has been here since 8, and we've had, I think, just a little pretty good discussion of the recommendations, and had got a chance to look at this, the budget and the presentation. Now, obviously, we're going to have more meetings on the budget. So I would like for you to consider that for us to set a time when we want to meet and discuss the budget.
We already did, next Monday at 12:30.
I know that, but I mean, it's just so that we're going to have, to make sure we're going to have enough time before we have the, make that final vote on the, whatever it is, the 30th or whatever it's going to be of June. And I would like for us to end this meeting as quick as possible, and come back, and next time we maybe can get more in depth discussion. So it's up to you guys. That's what I'm suggesting.
We'll go to full session, discuss personnel. You want me to hold it?
Mr. Hedden, how you
I can swing this either way. It's kind of this will take a minute to discuss whether or not we do it today or
I'd rather
next
do it
Monday.
at 12:30 on Monday, if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
Not that I don't enjoy talking budget.
And we'll think about this is like a whole pile of paper cuts. I'm talking about suggestions of like $500 there and $1,000 there. So it'll take a while.
Well, we discussed big items, and there seems to be some agreement on some of these. So that's a good start, it seems to me. And so now, I'm suggesting that we try to adjourn for the evening and come back. Now, if you're not in favor of that, that's fine and dandy. I'm just telling you how I feel. And then just take us up to the next Monday, right?
Next Monday.
Okay, could I have
I'm open to suggestion.
I can wait till next Monday.
I'm not trying to shut anybody off, really, but
I think you're right. I think we get to a point when I can tell the staff is getting
I'm
pretty
getting
more.
Now,
I'm a
Bill's
night
self
person, so
looks as cheery as ever sitting right there. Look at it.
Just remember, I'm the night person, so I can go as long as y'all want to go. But in interest of that, I will make a motion that we adjourn for the night and just pick back up. Well, just make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second? All right, any discussion?
I know you took my motion.
Call roll.
Mr. Wilder?
Sure.
Mr. Hayden?
Yes.
Mr. Turner?
Yes.
Mr. Knight?
Yes.
Mayor Graham?
Yes, we
I was going to vote no just to mess with you all. I was like, nah, I'm doing it. But,